by the Millennials Toastmaster Club. My name is Komal, and I am the host for today's group discussion session, Ready, Steady, GD. Let me give you all a quick self-introduction. I am an electronics engineer student in the final year and have been a Toastmaster for about 9 months now. Yes, I joined Toastmasters in the pandemic, and I can easily say that it's been one of the best decisions that I've made as a student. Toastmasters has made me not only a confident speaker, but also a better and a smart leader. Now, before I introduce today's guest speaker, I would like to remind you all of a few protocols to be followed during the session. The session is an hour long. In the first 40 minutes, the speaker will be talking about all the nitty-gritties of group discussion. During this time, I request all the participants to kindly keep your mics on mute. After that, we will all be having a 10 minutes Q&A session in which everyone will be given an opportunity to interact and ask questions to the speaker. Let me tell you a few things about our guest speaker today. He's a passionate HR and training professional with over 24 years of work experience spanning multiple domains, including EdTech, BFSI, financial services, and IT. He's an avid public speaker and writer, contributing articles for websites, print magazines, and newspapers on a regular basis. He's an electronics engineer and holds a postgraduate diploma in computer applications and a master's in human resource management and has topped all his degrees. He's a Gallup certified strength coach, a certified facilitator and trainer, and is currently working with Times Professional Learning as Senior Vice President and Head Human Resources. He has been associated with organizations like CMS, AppTech, BNP Paribas Bank, CRISIL, SP Jain Global School of Management in the past. He has been a distinguished Toastmaster 4 times and also Region 13 advisor for Toastmasters International in 2019-20, serving 12 countries in Southeast Asia. He was associated as a volunteer with Teach India in 2008 to 2009 and was part of an 8-member delegation to Pakistan on international friendship and goodwill exchange on behalf of the youth of India through Rotaract movement in Mumbai in February 2005. Whew, that's a whole lot of achievement. Apart from this, he keeps a keen interest in photography, graphology, and fountain pens. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome distinguished Toastmaster Dr. Brillian SK.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to anyone and everyone from whichever part of the world you have joined us. Thank you so much. I know it's evening, probably time for party. Unfortunately, the system doesn't permit anything beyond 8 o'clock effective this Monday. So this is time well invested, I would say. Before we begin, a quick check. How many of you are physically, mentally, and virtually present in this room? Okay, I can see some hands. Thank you so much. And it's important for all of us to be here. Thank you so much, Sunita. Thank you, Komal, for inviting me over. And I'm sure that this idea will go a long way in terms of helping the new generation get a foot into the corporate world. And I'm always with you. Let's see how we can make things a bit easier for all of them. So with this, as I said, I would love all of you to participate in the form of interactions. You can unmute yourself when required. So let's set. Are you ready? But this is not what we really want to do, right? GD is not about this. GD is something more decent. Something which helps not just you, but also the organization. So let's try to unravel few things in this journey today. And as we begin, few points to ponder, credits, disclaimer, and warning if you want to think about it from a logical perspective. All the images have been downloaded from Google, trying to fit the message. Characters that may come across during the discussion, during the Q&A, may be someone you know, or at times it could be you. Take a closer look. Quite often after such sessions, I'm asked for the PowerPoint presentation, I would say forget about the PPT. Try to remember the points. If required, I'll share the PowerPoint. But if you are able to take back the points and implement it, I think that will help the organizers here today. Having said that, participation is the only thing that will help make this event successful. And at the end of the session, I'll ask you a question on this slide. So watch this slide carefully and remember elements in it. A quick show of hands. How many of you have seen this image? No one? Wow. I'm sure you must have heard about a book series called as dash 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 for dummies. So this session is not about a session for dummies, but at the same time we will reflect on certain elements so that we know what we are talking about. So a quick question for all those who can answer and respond. What according to you is a group discussion? Quick responses please. You may unmute yourself and share your views.
Discussing on a point in a healthy manner.
Okay.
By
Thank you.
respecting the views of others.
Wow. Respecting the views of others. Fantastic. Anything else?
Sharing of thoughts.
Sharing of thoughts. Collaborative? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, collaborative brainstorming.
Collaborative brainstorming. Okay. Anything else?
Sharing of views and opinions with other participants.
Okay. Sharing of views and opinions. Yes. In summary, if we look at what a GD is, it is a discussion amongst a group of people. Ideally, it ranges from 8 to 12 depending upon the kind of organization, depending upon the kind of assessment that the organization would want to do, where views are expressed and shared in a friendly manner, which brings in the element of respect, which someone mentioned earlier, and that's critical for all of us to remember. The difference is a topic is given to you by a moderator or the person in charge, unlike where you can come together and freely discuss on a topic. This is slightly different, and this, my dear friends, is a leaderless group. Now, why am I mentioning this here at this point of time is this is one of the assessments that organizations undertake to identify certain qualities, characteristics, skills that may be useful for the organization, including leadership. It's not just limited to it, but it is including. So why do organizations or why do people conduct a group discussion? Quickly, responses please.
To know one's characteristics, nature, behavior in a group.
Okay.
To,
What else?
to check the communication skill of the people who are involved in the group discussion and how they are able to express.
Okay. Anything else?
Behavior style.
Check knowledge.
Leadership quality.
Leadership quality. Yes, we spoke about it. What else? I heard someone speak, but that got overridden by someone else who spoke.
Behavior style.
Behavior. Sorry, I could just hear behavior. What is it?
Behavior style.
Behavior style. Okay.
Does he respect other person?
Respect of other person. Impromptu, someone said.
Impromptu thinking.
Impromptu thinking. Wow, that's a new one. I'll make a note of it. Interesting. So Sunita told me that it is all about Tinder. How many of you know Tinder or are on Tinder? I'll not get too personal. I know you may not be willing to share it, but how many of you know Tinder? You heard of Tinder?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So group discussion is a tool to assess Tinder. And what is Tinder? team management, the T, individual's confidence, negotiation skills, decision making skills, evaluate your street smartness, and most important, your rational and logical thinking. Now, someone mentioned about impromptu thinking. Now, impromptu thinking can be modified into quick decision making. I'm sorry, I'm not able to see the chat. Yeah, I'm just looking at it. Sorry. Yeah, there are too many things happening. Now, why is it important to have a group discussion? And I'm talking from a recruiter's viewpoint or a person who's assessing people who are in a group discussion. One, it helps us understand about the subject. It helps us to think critically. It helps the group reach a decision or solve a problem. Now, the discussion someone mentioned, it's also about brainstorming, right? It helps improve what we call as listening and comprehension skills. The best part about group discussion is it helps us understand people who are confident and get an insight into how people emerge confident once they are in the session. There are times when you will be put in a spot where the other person or the person on the other side maybe brings up a point which probably you have never thought about, and your confidence may get shaky. But when you get into that mode of discussion, when you start engaging into the conversation, that's when sometimes when the confidence gets shaky, you can bring back your confidence and gain an advantage over others. Now, broadly, this is how it works for a standard organization. We have 8 to 10, 12 students. A topic is given on the spot, given about 5 minutes to prepare. Depending upon how the organization wants to look at it, they will give a case, they will observe your behavior during the session. Styles and demeanors, it's important to see how you perform when you're put in a group where probably you may not know the other people. There are instances in organizations where the organization may come to a college and conduct the session. In that situation, you will know your team or you would have probably interacted with them. However, there are instances where individuals are selected from different institutes and put together. Ideally, and here again, it's an ideal scenario, it's a boardroom seating where each individual can see everyone else. Virtually, it's a bit different. Virtually, it's all about seeing people on the screen. Depending upon organization, which tools they use, they may decide on the format. Now, what is important is it helps organizations and recruiting managers assess some of the key skills. Now, these key skills are specific to the organization, and it is not necessary that every time it's only about leadership. It could be about other elements as well. We will get to understand all of these as we move into the system. Now, a quick clarification here. Many people assume or believe that it is the duty of the organization to provide a feedback on how the assessment went, and reality is organizations may or may not provide the feedback depending upon multiple factors, because it may have an impact on future students who are coming in for the group discussion, or the organization may not really want to let out the secrets of what are the things that they are assessing. I was just in a group discussion a couple of days ago, and I was surprised by some of the experiences and the behaviors that we found in the session. And trust me, this is something which gave us new lessons in terms of how we can look at assessing skills, assessing competencies, assessing behaviors in a different manner. Now, from a recruiter's perspective, what are the key things that we assess? We assess your communication skills, your knowledge on the topic. Do you show leadership skills? Do you show and display analytical skills? Do you really have persuasive skills to push a point into your direction? Do you showcase creativity? Now, this is very interesting. Sometimes there are elements where you may want to bring in the creativity element. And most important is, how do you perform when you're put in a team? You are initially just a group of individuals. You may or may not know each other. but how do you work together and collectively maybe form a team? That is what gets assessed. Now, when it comes to preparation, I'm sure there are thousands or probably millions of websites, links that are available that keeps repeating the same elements on what is it that you need to do to prepare for a group discussion. This is what I believe are the top 3 things that you need to be aware of. Depending upon the organization that you are interviewing for or going in for a GD, you should be aware of the business trends in that particular domain for sure. You should have general awareness of what's happening. Unfortunately, due to the virtual world, we have lost touch with the reading habit which most of us had in the good old days. And this is an important element. You can use your online digital medium to read about not just current affairs, but a general awareness of what's happening, not just in your city, in your country, but across the world. It's important for you to prepare either or for or against the topic. It's all based on your value systems, your beliefs, or what you may know about the topic. It is important for us to remember that yes, I may have a plethora of information, I may know a lot of things, and we have the biggest hard drive that is available for us to use, which throws information and data points at a rate faster than that we can adjust to. So it's important for us to keep it short, keep it sweet, and keep it simple. Always remember that it's not about one person speaking all the time. It's about how everyone in the group gets an opportunity. So it gives a lot of credibility for the speaker to make the point and move on, and not just go around in circles making jalebis and chaklis when you're not expected to do that. A good old saying by one of the world champions of public speaking was, stay ready, so that when the opportunity comes, you don't have to get ready. Staying ready means you need to undertake a lot of efforts. You need to prepare yourself so that anytime the opportunity knocks, you are able to grab it quickly. Now, these are some of the do's and don'ts, as I mentioned, based on the experiences that we have had in conducting GDs. What is important is to listen carefully, not just to the topic, but to what everyone has said. One of the things that I personally request every participant is to make notes. You may carry a booklet, you may carry post-its, whatever you have, always have some method to make notes. I would suggest not use that digital mode because it takes away a lot of time from you. If you have a pencil, paper, it's easier for you to write down as you hear, or if you get some thoughts which can be used later. The point is all about your original ideas. It's not about what you've heard from the others. It's about something that is your own thought, something which you may have read about. While in a group discussion with 8 participants, it may not be feasible for everyone to present their original ideas, but there are instances where you can definitely look at it. The aspect about group discussion that is most critical for organizations is how factual are you? Are you talking about what you know and what is known, or are you creating something out of nothing? Always wait for your turn. Sometimes you may have to be a leader when there is a AK Hangal moment. Itna sannata kyun hai bhai? No one is speaking and you're just waiting for it. Please remember, time is limited. You do not have all the time in the world. So it's important for you to make sure that if no one else is there and if you know how to drive it, you can take that opportunity to be the leader. Most of the participants tend to forget about summarizing and closing it powerfully. It's important that while you have spoken, you have given some interesting points that are really thoughtful and it gives a new insight to the entire discussion. You need to summarize it effectively so that in conclusion the moderator knows what is it that you have already spoken about, because sometimes even when making notes we may tend to miss out certain elements. And then there are the don'ts. Now these are critical for everyone participating in a GD or anything to do with corporates. Never ever jump the queue. I know we are all excited, we are hyper when it comes to saying, oh, I know this, I need to speak. But let the person finish and then you take it up. And pehle tu or pehle aap ya pehle main. Never get into that mode. Wait for that opportunity. As soon as the point is over, just jump in. You may not agree with what people are saying. You may not really align to their thought process. So it's rude and not appropriate to interrupt them ever. Don't shift your viewpoint. It's not the so-called thali ka bengan, which shifts the position depending upon who's on the other side. Stick to your viewpoint, and if you're not very sure about where you want to be, take your time before you present your original thought. Never ever get into the mode of imposing the ideas that this is how it has to be, this is what is. No, it's your viewpoint. It is important for you to understand that you may not agree with me, I can disagree with you, but we cannot be disagreeable. That creates an unwanted situation for all the participants, and it may end up isolating you as one of the most negative individuals in the group. Yeah, sometimes people falter, sometimes there may be slip-ups, but laughing or making fun of others is a strict no. While you may feel that, oh, you've highlighted it to the moderators are actually making a note of how do you try to motivate people, how do you try to see that every member in that team is contributing. It happens, right? Even in a corporate situation, we may make mistakes, but it's not about laughing it off, but making sure that we try to avoid pointing fingers and saying, hey, you made a mistake. This has been already highlighted. We need to respect every individual, irrespective of the college, the rank the person may have had, the viewpoint that the person brings in. It's a viewpoint. We respect that viewpoint and we move on. There are instances, this is something which happened in the recent discussion. There were two of us as moderators, and trying to impress us, couple of participants started talking to us. You don't need to talk to us. It's a group discussion where you have to talk. We are observers. We are here to observe and make notes. It's not required for you to even know that we are there. We are like the fly in the wall. We are just there because we have to be. We have to make notes. Don't be a cut, copy, paste master. We are all used to it. But in a group discussion, never ever try to repeat points or re-emphasize on these, paraphrasing, etc. By bringing in your viewpoints is important, but never ever take a point directly from someone else's viewpoint and present it. What works generally, what we have seen in most scenario is, you need to be assertive. We are not asking you to be aggressive. We are not here in for a fight. You need to be in a position to present your viewpoint and move forward. You need to make a space for yourself. These are some of the elements which gets noticed. You need to pay attention. Attention deficiency syndrome is one of the biggest things that I have seen with people in a group discussion. They get distracted very soon. But it's important to pay attention. Sometimes there are interesting elements, interesting viewpoints which are being brought. This is more from the way we speak. These days, the language has undergone a lot of change, and we have the use of slang in our conversations. Please remember, a group discussion is a formal assessment tool. I am not here to know how you speak in slang. I'm here to help you. You have to help me understand how effectively you can communicate. You don't need to use any other language. Make sure it is positive. I'm not saying that it needs to be 100% grammatically correct. It may not be practical. Many a time students feel that, oh, I need to be speaking something which is there. I'm saying, don't use slang. Don't bring in aspects which are not really positive. there are instances where students may not be able to talk fluently in English, but at least try to construct statements which can be useful for the presenter to know, oh, this is what you want to talk about. It helps if you can bring in analysis. Logical is always, important. Many a times it is assumed that if there is something which is positive or a great point shared by a competitor in the group discussion, you need to stay silent. It is highly appreciated by the panel members who are looking at you if you identify that good point. And most important is agree to disagree. As I said earlier, it's about knowing that there would be differences of opinion, there may be difference of viewpoints, there may be a value system challenge that comes in. It means that there will be counterpoints, there will be a 360 degree of what you may have thought of, 180 degree, 90 degree, multiple degrees of differences from what you may originally have thought is the right way. People may really feel that it's not important to accept criticism, but sometimes you get into a mode where someone criticizes the point that you have made. I would say don't get into a debate mode and get into a conflict. Just accept that and move on. It's important to keep focus on what you want to really present, not on countering certain aspects which will take up time. The Bluff Master movie was a great movie, but bluffing doesn't really help. It's very easy for the moderators, the panel members to guess that you don't know anything about the topic. It makes sense to stay silent, listen, understand, comprehend, and then present rather than start bluffing about things that you really don't know. And that brings me to what my boss had once said: when you don't know what you don't know, you think you know, and you start speaking as if you are the master of it, and that brings in a lot of contradictions, a lot of confusion, and it results in downscaling in terms of the marks. This was something which I brought in for this session based on what Sunita had shared. Now, there are times when we may not really know anything about the topic, right? It happens. It's not that impossible to say, oh, I know everything about it. Now, this brings us to a question: how do I win a swimming competition if I am not a swimmer? Now, we need to face facts. With no idea of the topic, you can do best is try to be a listener. Try to understand what is being spoken. Now, a swimming contest, you need to know swimming, and it's just a metaphor being used. Don't get into a literal sense saying, oh, I cannot become a swimming contest winner by just learning swimming on the fly. What's important for you is that you become what we call as a good listener. Listen to what's happening. Maximize the elements, ignore the irrelevant part. What will help you is you may not really excel or you may not win the contest, but you will definitely make a mark, because people will realize that yes, you have listened to what was happening, you comprehended, and then you presented your viewpoints. Most important is to stay calm. No one knows everything about every topic. No one knows everything about every topic. So there are instances where you may not really know, but it's your demeanor, your assessment which is being done. So your behavior, your body language, everything matters. In a virtual world, it gets camouflaged to a lot. However, what makes a difference is how can you stay composed even when you know that, oh, you may not really get a chance to win it. Bring in what I call as your perspective based on all the inputs that you've heard from people. Whatever you heard, you like it, okay, bring in that element. I go back to saying that don't copy what someone else has said. Try to bring an element based on your perspective, and it is okay to say that while I do not know a lot about this topic, based on what I heard, this is what I can make of it. Most of the time we look at prospective employees, we look at prospective candidates who can at times get a hold of what's happening, make a quick assessment, and try to bring in their perspective. Now, these are some of the essential skills for individuals in a corporate world. Now, you need to stay slim. What does it mean? Speak less and involve more. Slim, speak less because you don't know the topic. Involve more by listening, trying to understand what is happening, make notes. I keep saying this time and again. It is okay, you may not know. There is a reason why this comes again time and again. We have seen people start bluffing. And always remember the PPE. I know it's not the right occasion to talk about PPE, but PPE is your pencil, your paper, and your eraser. It is not just the physical pencil, paper, and eraser, but also a metaphor to say you may make a note on paper, and sometimes you may want to erase it when you don't know. You find something very interesting. You may be in a situation where you don't know whether you should say this or that. That is where the eraser will come in handy. And once you have finalized on what you really want to speak, that is when you formalize it with a pen. I know we all need tips and tricks that helps us to become successful. And a success in a GD is not just because you spoke a lot. It's not because you opened. It's not because you were a leader. I have been a part of multiple group discussions where the person who opened or who started to be the leader did not actually qualify. Because sometimes people feel that I am a born leader, I can just jump in and I can do whatever I want. Maybe that's how they have been trained. But remember, the assessment happens on multiple factors. If you feel that you are a subject matter expert or you have a hold on the topic, please go ahead and open. Otherwise, wait for your time. Keep it short, simple, and sweet. Ideally, depending upon the time limit that the organization may give, you may want to restrict it to not more than a minute so that everyone gets an opportunity to speak and multiple thoughts come across onto the table. Always, always, always be polite to your participants. You don't need to cut them through. You don't need to stop them. Let them finish their point. And there are instances, as I said earlier, that you may find someone who made a mistake. So you can counter it. Don't go get into a mode of correcting them. Just counter it and move ahead. Now there is always apna time aayega moment for all of us, which means that you need to make sure that if you want to leave an impression, conclude very strong, which means that you have to bring in your power of analysis and your punches in that conclusion, the summarization, which is most critical for the panel member or the moderator who is analyzing. And once again, I'm reminding you, do not bluff. This is something which I put in on multiple slides with a specific reason. This happened a couple of days ago and I thought it should stay in the minds of people who are participating in this session today. Now, when it comes to moderators, when it comes to the panel members, what is it that matters the most? What is important is the communication skills that you bring in. And once again, it's not about the language. People confuse that, oh, I speak impeccable English, so I should be in. The answer is no, it's not just about the language. Communication includes a lot of elements, and given the paucity of time, we will not be in a position to get into details of all of these, but please go through the different articles that are available which can help you understand what constitutes communication skills. Your leadership skills. Now, while you may not realize, even simple steps and acts that you do during the GD gives an indication of skills which are aligned to the leadership competencies, and organization may be on the lookout for you. Maybe you may be a fast tracker. We may identify that, oh, this is something interesting. This is a skill that we need for this project. A project is not really defined when we are doing the GD, but it is possible that if we identify certain skills, certain traits in this individual, he may be marked for future leadership. how rational is your thought process? That's the critical element for every moderator. It's not easy, trust me when I say this. Everyone comes prepared, everyone believes that, oh, I am the best. Now when you are in such a situation, how do I look at whether you're rational, whether you're really thinking through everything? It is important to make a meaningful point, your own contribution. It's not about the brownie points. It's not about the brownie points. Brownie points are good in a different situation. It's purely about how effectively can you bring in your intelligence quotient and your emotional quotient into work. Do you really bring in the analytical ability? Now, as a moderator, I would look at analytical skills as one of the key elements for assessment, because every situation, irrespective of which position we are looking for, requires this, which means that it needs to be objectively presented. It needs to be seen how effectively and quickly you can understand the situation and react in that given situation. We spoke about that possibility that I may not know about the topic, right? But it is expected, please mark this word, it is expected that you are aware of the topic, broadly speaking, generally about current affairs. In a sense, if I were to look at it, if you are interviewing for something on finance, what is the recent thing that has happened? You may or may not get a topic, but the idea is, if you have not read about it, then probably you're not too serious. You need to be aware and have a grasp on the elements which I spoke about at the start, the 3 parts, if you remember. Current affairs being one of the most important elements for that. And last but not the least is the group behavior. In a group, you may change depending upon how the other person is behaving. It gives me a lot of pointers on whether you can really be a great team player, or should I really keep you out, or you can be just an individual contributor. Remember, irrespective of what level you may be in a team, it is the entire team that puts together the output and makes it a success. This helps me understand what kind of a behavior I can expect from individuals. Can they be really great team players, or I need to say, okay, this person brings in this competency but can never be a part of a team and will always remain an individual contributor. For a moderator, these are some of the elements which we have clearly been told that you need to monitor. In addition to this, every aspect, there is a detailed checklist that we need to go through to check how effective are you. Are you really listening? Can you really convince? Can you put across your point? Are you assertive, or are you just the silent speaker? Do you display leadership skills? How is your behavior to the other colleagues and participants in the group? Now this is important, what I call as a cheat sheet on elements that we assess. I'll just quickly take you through in the interest of time. The points marked in yellow are some of the things that really help people stand out, because everything else most of the candidates will have. They will come with knowledge, they may have read about this, they may bring in relevance, originality, their judgment. The language clarity, communication, as I said, has a lot of things which gives us perspective to monitor and assess on, which starts with language clarity, your aptitude towards the language. Do you really display listening skills? How effective are your speaking skills? Non-verbal, your body language, the posture. Are you open? Is your body language really there? Are you connecting with people, or are you trying to stay above everyone else? Every element gets assessed. When you're speaking, the focus of the panel members or the moderators is on you. So it's like the flashlights, the camera, everything is on you. So everything gets noticed. And when it comes to group behavior, are you really working towards building a team? How effectively are you managing a team if you become the leader? What kind of dynamics are at play when the discussion is happening? There are instances where there may be a conflict that arises. How quickly can you resolve that? If not, move ahead. How do you do it? How do you build rapport? How do you showcase that you have emotional intelligence? I'm sure you may have heard about this word 1,000 times, but this is something which is now getting assessed in most of the GDs to see, are you really looking at yourself by putting yourself in the other person's shoes? And of course, the interpersonal skills, which, as I mentioned, and the investigative ability stands out because questioning, understanding, and getting inputs from what has been spoken. Now, summarizing, what I would encourage all of you, students, or anyone who's getting into a mode where you have to be a participant of a GD, please be a good reader. The more you read, the better. Read as much as you can about your specific domain for sure. Read something about general knowledge and international, that is global affairs. Always keep a pen, pencil, or whatever you use to write. Don't use mobile phones. It becomes too tricky because you have to use your hands, or sometimes it's a bit of a messy situation. I prefer and I encourage people who can use a notepad, a pencil, or a pen. Pay attention to what the topic is. Sometimes you just jump. Do not rush because there is a time given for you to think about and assess before you start speaking. This is not impromptu speaking. Take your time. Utilize the time to jot down your thoughts. Make sure that you highlight what you want to speak first instead of jumping. Be as clear and confident as you can when you speak. Don't worry about what others would say. Stick to what you want to speak and make sure that you don't speak for a duration which is long. Ideally, I had recommended 1 minute. Again, depending upon the total time, this may reduce, but max time for you to speak is about 1 minute. Pay attention and make sure that you are open to criticism. People may say a lot. Don't counter. Always display good group behavior. There may be people in the group who are not speaking up. You may want to encourage them, motivate them to speak. There are times when you may have an urge to counter a point. Hold your horses, let them finish, and when you get a turn, speak. Interpersonal skills can never be replaced. Be as pleasing in a GD as you would want to be in your corporate organization. So here is what I thought I could summarize in terms of remembrance for you. What is a group discussion? It's all about generating ideas. It's about representing yourself, the R. It's about organizing your thoughts and presenting it, understanding different perspectives, and there may be situations where you may need to solve a problem. In the discussion, the D stands for decision making. I is information exchange. You speak about what you know, someone else talks about what they know. It's about strategic planning, conflict resolution, understanding others, being sensitive. We spoke about respect, but it's also important to be sensitive. Summarization of your thoughts is critical. You may have to look at inspiring, and this comes in the way you speak, in the way you behave in the session. Be a very good observer and negotiate your time and negotiate a place for yourself. This will help you become ready to face the GD. While you can go through thousands of videos, thousands of articles, what is important is practice. Get every opportunity that you can to practice and make sure that you make a mark for yourself. Well, just like Steve Jobs had a one more point, I thought I'll bring in a one more slide before I conclude. Today we are all in the virtual world. Everything is virtual. Physical participation as of now is not happening, and we may have to live with it for some more time. What is important is to remember that connection matters. Now, if you're thinking, oh, I should have a connection in the organization, no, it's not about that connection. It's your Wi-Fi connection. have a strong Wi-Fi connection. If you're using Wi-Fi for other devices, I would encourage you to stop them all, focus and make sure that your connection is the only connection that is connected to the Wi-Fi. Your laptop is the only one. And please do not use mobile phones. Do not use mobile phones. Always use a laptop. One of the most sturdiest and the recommended devices for such instances is always the laptop. The audio visual matters, right? We have been used to so many sessions, we've been at so many meetings where we just see blank screens and names. But in a group discussion, what matters is you need to be visible. You need to be on mute at all times. You need to light your face. The light should be from the other side. It should not be in a side where we can't see your face. Now there are tools that are available which are cheap. It's not very expensive. For example, this ring light. Now you may not be in a position where you get the opportunity to have light at all times. For example, to get this light set up, I had to move rooms. I had to find the best spot. Now if you're not able to get that, try to buy a ring light. It's very cost effective and it's very useful. Make sure that there is light on your face. Do as much as what we call as dry runs as possible. I log into Zoom in a dummy account that I created for such testing. I check, okay, if I use a virtual background, do my hands move, cut off? Is there anything that I need to set? Is the lighting proper? Do I need to adjust my chair? Do I need to adjust my camera? Do I need to adjust? Everything is taken care of before that. Preparation matters. Invest in a good headphone. I know people say, oh, is it important? I would say yes, because not everyone can invest in a mic, and as students you may feel it's too expensive, but the basic headphones that you get with your telephone, mobile phone is also good because it also has a microphone attached to it which can be used to amplify the voice and make sure that there is no ambient noise that gets transmitted to. However, if you have a good microphone with you, nothing like it. Researching is important, and I would encourage you to visit your doctor frequently when you want to research. Visit Dr. G. Dr. G has solution for everything. You search for any topic and you will find thousands and thousands of articles, videos, images that will be there. Make sure you use it effectively. Stay charged. I'm not talking about yourself, but your laptop. Make sure that you bring your charger along. I don't know how many of you know it, but if your laptop goes into a battery saver mode, it becomes critically ill and it takes up a lot of bandwidth. It takes up a lot of resources which can delay your voice. It can delay your video. So please keep your charger connected to your laptop and switch it on. What's your background? Quite often, especially in Indian households, we may not have the luxury of having a fantastic background. There are so many things, there are stuff lying around, but when you are participating in a GD, make sure that at least you get a clean background, a non-messy background. Never ever use a bed sheet, please. It becomes too cheesy and it's not pleasing to the eyes. If you have a plain colored bed sheet, then I would still say yes, but don't use the bed sheet that you normally use for your beds. This is important since we are in the virtual world. Everything that we do has the potential to leave an impression. And if you want to leave a positive impression in the virtual world, I would encourage all of you to look at these aspects when you get into the GD. I know it's a topic which can go on for hours, technically speaking, but I would suggest that we end the session here. I wish all of you good luck and do certainly hope that you all stay safe, stay at home and don't venture out until and unless it is necessary and important. I would like to thank the organizers for having me over. Thank you once again. And now the session is open for questions depending upon the time. We'll see how many questions we can take. Unfortunately, I can see only Santosh, whose pose is such that I thought he's raising a hand. Over to the host, Komal.
The participants can unmute themselves and ask questions.
Hello, Brilliant. I'm Sneha here.
Hi, Sneha. Sorry,
Yeah,
just a moment. I'm trying to adjust so that I can see you. Yes,
I hope
Sneha.
I am audible in you.
Yes, audible and
First
visible.
of all, I would like to say that it is such a awesome session, such an awesome session. I really
Thank you
liked
so
it. It
much.
is really very helpful. Being an educator, it is helpful for me so that I can guide my students. One question I would like to know, like in this age where lots of information are available, whether it is on Google or YouTube or anywhere else, how we should keep updated and how we should know what topic they are going to ask. Because nowadays there are lots of information and there are lots of news. Sometimes people get confused to track which kind of current affairs.
Right. And I agree with you, and I do not have a one size fits all response to this. To be very honest, it is like asking a question, when will COVID end, right? We always thought that, oh, it will end by this time, and
Yes,
suddenly there is a second wave. So,
exactly.
my suggestion is very simple, and I would encourage all of you to think in that direction, that there is no guarantee of what will come in. But what is guaranteed is that if you are aware of what is happening in that particular domain. So, for example, if I am applying for, let's say, a financial organization, I would look at topics which are related to the financial markets. What is the latest that are happening? A few things. I am not saying that I should get into a mode of, sorry, of knowing everything. We cannot be know-alls, right? It is impossible that anyone in this world will know everything. If that happens, then I think probably we've achieved everything in life. So there are instances where you may not really know about the topic, but saying that, okay, these are the top three things. I know students, what they do generally is they try to do what we call as trend analysis. It's like the good old 21 questions which we used to have when we were in the 10th and 12th standard, right? There used to be a book which was like a last minute guide. We would refer to that because we thought इसमें के जो 21 questions हम लोग कर लेंगे तो we will be through. But no one can tell you. Yeah, there are instances. I can see someone saying in chat that my boss claims that he knows he is everything, and probably that's the reason why he's a boss and he's not a leader. That is always a misconception, that any individual can know everything about everything. It's practically not possible. But yes, if you always carry Google around, or if your eyes have Google inbuilt, then I can say, yeah, quickly वो search मार के solution दे देगा. But other than that, my simple tip for you, Sneha, and for any student who's thinking of कौन से topic पे prepare करूँ, don't worry about that too much. Just glance through it. Make sure you're preparing well. Go back to what I said. Stay ready. Don't get ready when you know that tomorrow is the GD. If you stay ready, you will have a lot of points, lot of aspects. It's only a matter of someone triggering that to say, अरे यार ये तो मुझे पता चल गया.
Thank you so much, Brilliant. It is really helpful.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Sir, so this is a question from one of the participants in the room, and they are asking like how being in Toastmasters better prepares a person for like group discussions, where like a person is needed to think, quickly, gather their thoughts better, and present their ideas in such a way that they have a good impact in a restricted time.
So this is where clubs have the flexibility to modify how the table topics are conducted. So for example, I remember, I can't name them because unfortunately I didn't know this question will come in, otherwise I would have taken permission from that institute based clubs. They used to conduct specific sessions focused on group discussions. They would bring in industry experts and they would have a session conducted and they would get the feedback. everything happening in a Toastmasters environment. So you bring into play the element of your prepared speeches and your impromptu speaking together into that GD, which is you get that 5 minutes time to prepare. And today it's all about Google, right? Most people do that even if you don't know, and that's why I kept saying don't bluff, because the moment you start bluffing, if you're aware of that topic, go ahead and do it. So it is important that at Toastmasters, if possible, if you're an institute based club, or if you need special sessions to be organized, who stops you? There are so many people who are from the industry. You have HR professionals, you have CEOs, you have CMOs, most of the CXOs are there in the organization. You can ask them, and I'm sure they will be more than happy to help the student fraternity, and you can leverage Toastmasters to practice your skills. But yes, one thing is, it may not happen in every meeting. You will have to plan for it, schedule it, and get people to act as moderators for that.
I think Akshat wants to ask a question. Akshat, please unmute yourself.
Hi,
very good evening, sir.
Hi, good
I have a question. I had this experience in a GD for a government job. We have these interviews.
Okay.
So
UPSC?
Not UPSC, it was SSB for the army.
SSB. Okay.
So there they had the discussion went on to the topic where Hindi was being stated as the national language. So I told them that Hindi is not a national language; it's an official language. But everybody was everybody had accepted that Hindi is a national language, which is like truism, which people accept as to be true, but which is not actually true. So how do you handle such things? Because if you are putting effort trying to convince everyone, then it will go against you as far as getting points are concerned. So I want to ask, how do you handle such things?
Right.
So very limited.
This is where I go back to saying that it is important for you to understand the organization. What kind of an organization are you participating in this GD for? Because every organization, every institution works in a different mode. Now, I don't know what the moderators would be looking for, but there is something which we call as the limit to which you can try to persuade. After a couple of attempts, I would say drop it, because you may become the one person standing, the last man standing in such situations, and it is not a good sign to isolate yourself, and then you may get excluded from the group. As they say, if you can't beat them, join them. So you need to understand, but one thing is for sure, that if you have your points, your relevance about the topic very clear, it is a matter of just translating it from English to Hindi, if that is the language that is being used for that situation. And unfortunately, you cannot go back to the moderators and refer, okay, can I change the language or not? No, you can probably try to speak in both. You can blend it in a fashion so that it becomes easier for you, because you're comfortable sharing your thoughts. At the same time, it also sends out a message to the moderator that you are accommodating a request where people, majority of them, is keen on speaking Hindi. While it is not relating to GD, I'll share one instance which happened with me. And we are Toastmasters, right? We are always told that English is the language, and that to the Queen's English is the language in which we present, we talk, we do everything. So in 2013, I remember it was August, just before I was leaving for the international convention, I was invited by Alliance District to present a keynote and a workshop for teachers. Okay, and when you think of teachers, when you think of keynote, you already have a high expectations in terms of what you want to deliver. So I prepared everything accordingly. I went there. I generally I have a presentation made, so that images and all, it's all about breaking that what we call ice with them. And I checked one day before what kind of a projector, so that I can carry my connector. So they said, sir, kya projector kuch nahi hai hamare yahan pe. So I was shocked, like a keynote without this. I said, it's fine. because end of the day it's about the point, it's not about the PowerPoint. So I went there, I made notes, I went, and I am early. I reach about half an hour before. I speak to one person who comes after me, and I ask her, this is the place where the session is happening. She says, "Tumi kon?" in Marathi. "Who are you?" And I explain, "Oh, acha acha, tumi session घेणार आहेत का? Are you taking the session?" I said yes. And then she starts opening up and says, "Sir, 90% of the teachers are not comfortable with English. So everything that you have prepared for the last 9-10 hours for this topic has now gone into a mode where you don't know what to do. You have an option to continue in English, or you have an option to involve the audience and work on it." So I opened up to them and I told them that I prepared in English. However, I will present this in Hindi. I may not know certain words and I'll use your help. So what I try to do is diffuse that situation of tension for me and for the audience by involving them in my journey. Similarly, in a group discussion, when you know that the other side doesn't really, accept what you want to put across in a language that you know, be open to come down to their level and speak in a language that they are comfortable with.
Yes, thank you.
So we have time for one last question. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, so I would like to ask one of the questions that I have received. And they asked, like, if a person makes a mistake while stating certain statistics and facts, maybe the other members in the discussion haven't realized that mistake, but maybe the members of panel did, okay? And you never know whether it's right. So should a person correct their mistake or like just leave it?
Always, if you realize you need to correct them and mention it that, in an oversight, this is what I mentioned and I would like to rectify. It is not 10%, but it is X%, because it brings in a high level of credibility, and that is what is most important. It is said that your character is not what you do when others are watching, right? It's what you do when no one else is watching. So if you are able to own that mistake and say, I did a mistake and I want to make sure that I will not step back and hide behind this and say, nahi, maine aisa kuch nahi kiya. If you do that, it's not a brownie point, but it definitely adds to your credibility.
Sir, do you have any closing words?
I think I just saw one hand go up, so I'll probably use that as an opportunity rather
Abhinav
than...
Thakur.
Yeah. So at least... Yes,
So I have a question more related to Toastmasters in general. So I find that a lot of people are not professionals, don't want to join Toastmasters. They don't believe that it's really helpful in their career or it's going to help them in their career. They're like, no, I don't need it. It's not useful for me. But I personally believe it's very useful in one's career, as communication skills are one of the most important skills to have. So how do you motivate your colleagues or your juniors to join Toastmasters?
So I always share my story. I don't get into the mode of saying I need to motivate you. I always share my story of how I landed up in Toastmasters and how I am now 12 plus years continuing as a member in Toastmasters. So it's important to showcase that even if you're an established or a well-known personality, for example, I used to be a winner in debates and elocution competition in my school, right? Which meant that I had a background. But when I came to Toastmasters, I realized, I was just focusing on 2 or 3 elements. And at the sake of repetition, I'll say, but Toastmasters is like a buffet. There is so much at offer. It depends on how much hunger you have in you. The hungrier you are, the better it is for you. Each time you can go back, fill your stomachs, come back again and go for a second round, third round. I have done my Distinguished Toastmasters path 4 times. This is the 5th time that I'll be completing it. But each time I go back to a project, I try to do something different. I'm comfortable at X. Can I go Y? So one example which I share always is one of the projects I spoke about keep running. Right? We all know if you're in a Mumbai, everyone your day starts by running behind a train, running behind a bus, and if you're in college, you're running behind girls or boys, and everything is all about running. It's all about a race, right? First आना है या आगे एक सेकंड से ट्रेन छूट जाती है, right? And after I completed my distinguished Toastmasters journey first time over, when I came back to that project, I said, how can I do it differently? And that morning I read an article which said go slow, and I said, this is interesting. Last time I motivated and inspired them to keep running. Now I have to think about go slow. 80% of my audience is the same, and that is what keeps me engaged with Toastmasters. So that's my story, and how I take back learnings from Toastmasters to my corporate, the way of I provide feedback, the way I let people explore and experiment. If there are members in the audience who have worked with me, they know that I'm always willing to let people experiment, but I make sure that when there is a need, I pull them up. When there is a need, I push them, so that it is not something which is just to, say in quotes, but this is something which I live day in and day out. So I share my journey, and that helps me get more members. I can share interesting stories offline of how messages motivate me every time. 2-3 instances where they say, okay Brilliant, this session of yours made me realize what I am missing, and I'll continue my journey with Toastmasters. I think that is more than sufficient for me. I don't need to go and convince Komal to say, oh Komal, it will do you this. I say this is how I benefited, and I feel you can benefit too.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now it's time for a group photo. So I request everyone to turn on their cameras.
Jimmy, where's your gun? Before starting this, I heard a music play. Jamie's got a gun. Okay, one last question while everyone comes on. Do you remember the slide I said you need to keep every element in memory? Yes, no? What was the one element that stood out?
Dr. G.
Dr. G is Dr. Google. No, in that slide number 3, which was credits, warning, and
remember the points.
Yes, but that was there. What is the other element which stood out? There were pipes.
Tap water.
Yes. Can you give a reference? Can you get a reference? Sunita told me there are millions of nulls. This is a session for millionals.
Oh God.
So you can't get away with your PJs. So at last we got
I had to crack at least one, right?
yeah. So, but there weren't million nulls. There were few nulls, but it's okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for participating, and wish you good luck.
Thank you, Brillian.
Thank you, Brillian.
Yeah.
Thank you
Take
so
care,
much,
stay
sir,
safe.
for